Hi everyone, it's Anne again, coming to you from a very wet and rainy Auckland City in New Zealand. I hope that it's nicer where you are. It's certainly pretty grim here. But anyway, what I'm talking about is I'm making a series of, hopefully a small series of little videos here on YouTube about my journey with CCSVI in relation to my multiple sclerosis. Excuse me. I really want to stress the importance of every single person who has decided to undertake this journey or embark on this journey, that you can only really follow people, but you have to make informed choices for yourself. And I hope that people that are wanting to go on this journey are having a look at the different clinical trials that actually are coming out. I'm trying very hard to largely ignore all of the there's been a lot of negative things that are around this whole CCSVI embargo, and I'm trying very hard to ignore all of that hype and all of the stuff that is being said about MS that is CCSVI that is actually very negative. I find it very sad and disappointing to see that there has been some bashing of the whole theory that is CCSVI. I find that very sad. I find it sad because we could be on the very tip of something extremely exciting here. And I find it very disappointing that there has been bashing on both sides of the fence. We seem to have two camps of thought here. Largely we have an MS group of people who very much are excited by the whole theory of CCSVI, because this could very well offer something very tangible, and it could mean that we might be on the tip of discovering what causes multiple sclerosis. And the other side of the coin is that we've got a lot of professional people, scientists, doctors, a whole slew of different professionals who are sitting on the fence. I beg your pardon, who are sitting on that side of the fence, saying, slow down, not entirely sure that this is actually going to amount to very much at all. We need to really explore the evidence, and that's that side of the coin. What I want to say is that I'm sitting right in the middle of the whole thing right now. I was thinking very long and hard about it last night and this morning, because it would appear that and I'm talking about this side of the coin where there's a lot of scientific clinical trials, evidence, knowledge, opinion. One side of it is that you are saying, please slow down, please wait for the trials to come up, please wait for the evidence to show what it's going to show before you do anything. So there's that side of it, and then there's also another side of it that is saying there's actually not enough clinical evidence and we're not going to do any more trials, which I find very frustrating, because if you're not going to do any more trials, if there are some countries that are sitting there saying there's not enough clinical evidence and we're not going to do any more trials, how the hell are people like me supposed to make any sort of an informed choice about these matters? And how will the evidence be displayed for anyone, whether that be a person with MS working alongside of the GP and the neurologist, or the neurologist itself? How on earth will these people be able to make informed choices and decide whether there is any credibility to the whole theory that is CCSVI? So this has really kind of left me in a bit of a quandary, and many people in a bit of a quandary. What I can say is that CCSVI is just the most enormous thing. It's huge. It is bigger than Texas. It's enormous, and it has caused a split, as I say, a split in thought of whether this is something tangible or whether this is something that is not tangible at all. So I've gone off and I've done my own thing, really, and I've selected a few trials and studies which I think are significant, and I've just decided to evaluate this stuff for myself and see what I can see. So I focus on, obviously, Zamboni, as he's the person who proposed the whole CCSVI thing, and MS being related to vascular stuff in the first place. Although he wasn't the first, guys. He wasn't the first at all. I think there's evidence to say that there were people before him that suggested that there is a it's been established that there's a vasogenic thing to the MS demyelination and lesions and plaques, because a lot of these demyelinations and lesions are seen around veins, and there have been people in the past that have suggested things, and so I don't know that Zamboni is actually the first person. However, he did a trial on 65 patients with MS, and now it needs to be really stated here that MS, there's not one kind of MS, there's several kinds of MS, and for these trials, 3 types of MS largely are kind of looked at, and that would be the remitting, relapsing, the secondary progressive, and the primary progressive types of MS. There have been some trials that have not separated these 3 out, and that is kind of confusing to me, because it would seem that the trials that have separated them out are finding some differences in 2 or 3 of the types of multiple sclerosis. So it's really important, I think, from what I can see, that the types of MS are separated out and studied. He used 235 controls, 65 patients, as I say, with remitting, relapsing. And the ones that he did use for the trial, he tried to match to the healthy controls. He tried to match at least 60 of them with age and gender with the MS patients. 82 of those were healthy. 54 of those people were affected by other neurological diseases like myasthenia gravis, Parkinson's, that kind of thing. And 48 others had no neurological disease, but they actually were scheduled to have venography because they might have had something like hypothyroidism or stenosis of venous access for hemodialysis. Sorry, put my glasses on, might help. What he found was that when he studied them, 86% of these people that were studied showed a blocked azygos vein. The azygos vein resides in the chest and is one of the veins implicated in CCSVI. And he found 91% of these patients, so that's 59 of 65 people he tested, to have blocked jugular veins. And I also must point out to you that this paper was published and accepted by the Journal of Neurology, Neurosurgery and Psychiatry. So it was actually an accepted paper. So I find it very, very sad that there has been some professional bashing of this, and it's been called a hoax, amongst other words, which I find very sad, considering this was a paper that was published by a respected and well-known journal. What he also noticed was that the remitting, relapsing and secondary progressive courses were associated with CCSVI. These patterns were significantly different to the primary progressive, and this is probably due to the locations of the venous obstructions in the veins. So that's interesting. So that was Zamboni's study, and as I say, I can't stop myself again from saying that I find it very sad that people have slammed that study, considering I think that it was done with good intention. Yeah, so worrying, but anyway. I also studied Simca et al. And when I say et al, I'm talking, et al means and others. So there's more than one research scientists involved in this research paper, involved in the study process, as well as probably the writing. So Simca in Poland studied 70 patients, 49 of these with remitting, relapsing, 5 with primary progressive, and 16 with secondary progressive. Now his results, I couldn't see a control there. I don't think there was actually a control group, but I stand to be corrected on that. But the results show that 2 out of 4, which was 90% of people, were shown to have CCSVI. They further went on to comment that there was reflux of the internal jugular and vertebral veins. So that's 42, nearly 43% of those people. And that a whopping 87% of people showed a stenosis of the internal jugular veins. So quite a significant paper, really, quite a significant outcome. So matching those 2 papers that had positive outcomes, I looked at a couple of negative papers. Well, I don't want to use the word negative, it's a horrible word. I looked at a couple of papers that had results that showed CCSVI, there's no real relevance in CCSVI or no CCSVI at all in MS. Sundstrom et al. He did a study using 21 patients with remitting relapsing multiple sclerosis and 20 controls, and they found that there was no presence of reflux of the I'm having trouble with my speech again. No presence of reflux in the jugular veins, and that 18 out of the 21 patients showed absolutely no evidence of CCSVI at all. They were not able to reproduce the CCSVI findings of Zamboni. There's two comments I want to make out of this here. First of all, it was a small study only using 21 patients. Small studies though can produce big things, so just that's a comment, nothing more than a comment. But the other thing that I want to say is that it would appear that only remitting relapsing patients were studied, that secondary progressive and primary progressive patients were not studied at all. That to me was something that, again, that I could say as a comment, but there was no comparison between remitting relapsing, secondary progressive and primary progressive, and yet the other two studies, Simca and Zamboni, did find a discrepancy between these three things, a difference rather, between these three types of multiple sclerosis. So that was interesting. Again, another study, pardon me, I think this one was done rather in Germany, and I'm going to say this name wrong, DOPE D-O-E-P-P et al. Now again, this was not a particularly small study because they used 56 patients, but again the type of MS was not stated, and they used 20 controls, and again no difference was detected at all in these patients, and certainly no CCSVI was found. So four papers there that I've used, and 4 papers, 2 of them found there was CCSVI and 2 of them found that there wasn't CCSVI. I have to say that I didn't find in the papers that produced that demonstrated that CCSVI was not present, I didn't find that these papers were particularly robust. They were small and they didn't have an awful lot to say about things. What I found in the Simca and in the Zamboni papers is that they talked a lot about positioning of patients in testing with these jugular veins and the azygous veins, especially the jugular veins, that lying them down and standing them up in the supine position and in the anatomical position, straight up and down position, that there is a difference in the way the jugular vein performs. And I actually think that in lying down, from memory, in lying down, the jugular vein really doesn't even come into play at all. It's when the person is standing up that the jugular vein then comes into play. So that is also something that needs to be looked at, perhaps, I don't know. But I just found that there was not a hugely, for myself, I found that there wasn't that these 2 papers by Sundstrom and pronunciations, I'm sorry, I didn't find that these were particularly robust papers, but that's just my opinion. Also too, there has been a big study in Buffalo in New York. I'm trying to find a piece of paper that I wrote some stuff down on. Now I couldn't lay my hands on the paper particularly at the time of me doing my research, but I did find some stuff written by Ashton Embry, who is an author on the Direct MS website. That's www.direct/ms.org, and he had some interesting things to say about the phase 1 of the University of Buffalo study of CCSVI, and I had a kind of a look at all of these and all of the results of the Buffalo study based on what they said, and as I say, I'm sorry I could not lay my hands on that paper. It will be out there, we will be able to get our hands on it, but for some reason I couldn't.